Okay. Part two. This has come up, oh my God, so much with Black Lives Matter marches. I don't know what your social media feeds look like, but mine just, yeah, are filled with certain arguments and fights and everything else around this. And I want to teach you a set of strategies that people in privilege use to deflect or deny complaints or evidence of inequality. And so what's happening right now is Black Lives Matter, but this can apply to so many different issues. And I want you to know it's a think of it as not as content of words, but as a grammar. It's a set of tropes. It's a set of ways of talking about inequality that have become very predictable in our culture. I've been teaching this since the mid-90s, by the way. So the second part is the way that failure to know turns into refusing to know as a way to protect privilege. So in our culture, we have a passion to adamantly deny all evidence of inequality, even when it's on video, even when it's glaring in our face, we deny it. Why? We don't want to change shit, right? So come for the rulers. I already talked about it. We don't want to think of ourselves as bad guys. Nobody wants to be the bad guy. And we don't want to change things that are working for us. And where people with privilege are often afraid that they will lose things if other people get things. And it's not always you lose the privilege of getting more than someone else, but you don't necessarily get less. That's what people don't get. These are strategies that are used to confuse, exhaust, and silence the oppressed. And Aida Hurtado calls it the pendejo game. So if you speak Spanish, you know it means like dumbass or the playing dumb, playing the fool. And these are strategies to deflect knowing. So this is a meme that showed up on my Facebook, and this is very much the pendejo game all in one. So, hi, I'm a white dude who likes to play devil's advocate because other people's struggles are theoretical to me. It's fun to debate their right to equality. While we're here, I would like to center my voice and perspectives about a cause that means nothing to me. I'm here to take up all the oxygen in the room and exhaust people who are trying to fight against injustice so that we can maintain the status quo, which serves me. I have no interest in learning. Your frustration is my ultimate goal. Let's engage. So, some of you have been on the receiving end of this guy. Some of you may be this guy. So I want you to really try to keep an open mind to hear what's being said here. Let me give you an example of devil's advocate. I posted about COVID on my Facebook. Why? Because I've had it for 70 fucking days now, or God knows how long it's been. I've even lost track. I'd have to count on the calendar. And what I posted on my Facebook was, we can debate politics of what we should do about COVID, but don't debate with me whether it's real or that my life matters because I have immune problems. And I shared the pain and the suffering I've had and what it feels like to hear eugenics type language about how it's okay that the weaker people are sacrificed in the interest of the strong. And what that feels like for me, somebody who I feel like even though I'm disabled, I think I've contributed a crap ton to this world in terms of teaching and loving and caring and all the things that I do. And somebody posted on my thing, yeah, but it really is only the autoimmune ones anyways, right? Like you can't really think that your right to life is more important than my right to live. And then I was like, what the fuck are you, like, I just said how this feels when you say that. And he said, well, you shouldn't post on a public space if you don't want debate. Well, I didn't post on a public space. I posted on Facebook to my friends and family who should care whether I live or not. At no point did I say we should extend the quarantine or everyone has to wear masks. All I said was my right to live is equal to anyone else's right to live. That's all I said. That was my controversial term. And he wanted to play devil's advocate with my own life while I'm sick, right? Because we just like to play that game. So these are predictable communication strategies. if you've been on the receiving end of these, it is gaslighting. It is disorienting. You start to think maybe you're crazy, or maybe you're the one with the problem. I had a friend that the other day in class, all the white people started talking over her and silenced her talking about race. And at the end, she was like, am I being too sensitive? And this is what happens is the people who have been the receiving end of this do, like, either they fight back, but you start to wonder, is it just me? But I also want to acknowledge that for some of you, learning this is going to be upsetting, because if you have privilege, you probably believe that all of your thoughts and beliefs come from you, from inside of you, and their original thoughts and beliefs. And the thing is I can predict thoughts and beliefs in advance, which means they're not individually from you. It means they're from a socialization process. So this could be upsetting to some of you. We like to think of ourselves as individuals. It feels like we develop our thought. It feels like we thought through our own, it feels like we developed our opinions on our own. This is just my belief of how things are. But it turns out there's predictable patterns, regardless of topic, whenever there are power imbalances. And I can tell you what they are in advance. I know when these discussions come up, I can predict the next 5 counter arguments to it, regardless of whether it's race or gender or sexual orientation or whatever the topic is. Whenever there's power imbalance, these are strategies that people in power use to end the conversation. Okay. So what that means is my individual thinking and my best thinking and my best thoughts and my life experiences are actually not completely free, but we've been socialized to believe, think, and say certain things depending on our proximity to power. So if we are very close to power, we probably spout it more, but it doesn't mean that everyone who's Black is understands about whiteness and blah, 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 because just look at Candace Owens. And it's so proximity to power. So depending on how close or far you are away from it are the kinds of things you've been socialized to say or believe. So prejudice is something that we all have stereotyping, we all have prejudice. We in some ways need to in order to function. There's too much information in the world. We have to put it into categories. But this quote struck me is that prejudice is an emotional commitment to ignorance. It's when you won't give it up in the face of evidence. When you may not know a thing, but even when confronted with the evidence of a thing, we still refuse to know it. So that's why it's a failure. It's a refusal to know, refusal to see. So we're calling this the Pendejo game. And this is about denying inequality ad nauseum, forever and ever and ever. So Aida Hurtado describes it as playing the fool. We act like we don't understand. We have innocent defensiveness. Hey, I'm trying to learn. And we require oppressed people to explain better. Like, why do you have to be so angry? Why do you light shit on fire? Why did you take over the thing? If you would have just explained it better, I might have understood it. So her full quote is, I will listen to you and seem engaged. At critical points, I will claim I don't know what you're talking about, and I will ask you to elaborate ad nauseum. I will assert many of our differences, if all, are just due to different ways of communicating. I will ask you to educate me and spend all your energy in finding ways of saying things to me so that I can understand. So you get a lot of white defensiveness right now about why do they have to express themselves in that way, in a way that is uncomfortable to me. And when they reply back with, go educate yourself, it's like, if you want me to understand this, you need to educate me. That's the Pendejo game. It comes with 7 steps, and these are important steps, and I'll probably break this into a couple. Oh, okay, I have an example here. So when I was at Microsoft, I was saying something about what happened. There's some kind of problem, and my manager said, I don't know if it's just you and my ex-wife or all women that just love to complain all the time. And I was like, oh my God, that's so sexist. She's like, what do you mean it's sexist? You were complaining. And so there's this idea that even when you point it out, it's rejected. Another time, I was a software engineer. I was level 59 software engineer. And my boss CC'd me on an email with the secretary to plan a we call her admin, to plan a ice cream party. And I was like, why did you put me on the mail to plan an ice cream party? And they're like, I just thought it'd be something you would like to do. I'm like, I'm a fucking software engineer. Why would I plan an ice cream party? Because I was the only woman there. So me and the secretary, the only women there, and I was put there. But they said, why are you offended? I wouldn't be offended. If someone just put me on there, I wouldn't be offended. I just wouldn't do it. Just say no. You don't have to freak out about it. It's like, okay. So this idea that if it doesn't affect you directly, you can't see why people would be upset. And you always hear this, like, why don't Black people just comply with the cops then? Because they're shot with their hands up. They're shot with their hands behind their back. They're killed while they're on the ground. Compliance isn't the problem. Okay, those are my examples. Okay, now on to the overview. The whole thing's underwritten by the number one thing, which is denial of structural inequality. If we believe that racism or sexism or homophobia is an individual belief, then we will never get at the structural inequality in our society. The ways that we support that are through solipsism, condescension, discrediting the witness, reverse victimization, whataboutism, and ad nauseum. So let's bust through these. Number one, the pendejo game, the denial of structural inequality. I believe that this is getting better, but we've been taught, and it's still in the dictionary, that racism is an individual attitude about race. And that there is no more structural inequality yet because we had civil rights, and therefore everything is equal. So that our world is individual, not systemic. Why does that matter? Because then individuals have to change, not our system, right? We've been taught since birth that we live in a meritocracy, which means if you work hard and you're the best, you will succeed. And that everyone who succeeds is because they were the best or they worked hard. And that everyone's now on a level playing field. I don't know if you saw the thing going around about structural racism. Then they had a conservative unpack it. And I thought he was going to debunk the structural racism. And in fact, he didn't. All he did was say why Democrats don't care about structural racism. He didn't even deny the facts were true. You read this one, the past is the past. Why you gotta live in the past? Slavery was over like 100 years ago. Why don't you pull yourself up by your bootstraps, right? Without realizing like, hello, the civil rights just happened a generation ago and it's not gone, right? I had a roommate who once stole my car for 4 hours. He took my car and he left, and we didn't have cell phones yet. We just had text, or not text. We had pagers, and I was paging like, 187, which means murder, and 911. And he comes back and he throws me the keys, and I'm like livid. I'm like, fuck you, get out. I never want to see you again. And he's like, what's wrong? And I was like, you took my car. And he's like, oh, did you need your car? I'm like, what? Yeah, like, it's not the point. The point is you took my car. He's like, what do you need your car for? I was like, to go to the store. He's like, well, now you have your car. I was like, what? And he's like, why you gotta live in the past, man? Why you gotta dwell on old shit? Why don't you move forward from here? You're trying to create a problem when there is no problem. You need to go to the store and here's your car. And I was like, oh my, what? Right? That's gaslighting. That's this like, why you gotta live in it? He goes, why you always gotta think about old shit, man? Why you always gotta dwell with old shit? This idea that's about individual choice and attitude. 3 different men in 3 different positions. It's not your color that defines your future, it's your choices. So it's a complete denial of all, just the hundreds and hundreds of documented ways that there is structural racism built through housing discrimination, through sentencing and arrest discrimination, through wealth distribution, all kinds of stuff that I won't spend the time to unpack here in this lecture, but I can send you to sources if you're not sure. And it's a denial of group-based oppression. So it's the idea that anything that's happening is something individual and it has nothing to do with your race. And I'll admit that I have been the victim of this as well. So we were in Costco and my ex-husband went to the counter at the camera shop or the photo place and nobody helped him. And he's like, man, they're so racist. Like nobody's coming to help me. And my first thought was, well, did you pull the tag? Or did you do something wrong? Or did you not flag them down right? My first instinct was that you must have done something wrong. You must not have caught their eye. You must have hidden. You can't assume that it's racist. So I came over to see him, and they immediately helped me. So this idea that we deny it can't be anything else, it's gotta be this, right? It can't be group-based because that doesn't fit my understanding. Okay, here's a super racist video to watch, but just to hear this in action. Oh, here's one. College women stop getting drunk. It's closely associated with sexual assault, and yet we're reluctant to tell women to stop doing it. So they found that alcohol abuse by the perpetrator and the victim is involved with a lot of college rapes. And so they're telling women don't drink, as if it's not systemic power imbalances where men are encouraged to be sexually aggressive. There's no structural problem. It's just individual women probably should stop dressing like whores and drinking, right? This is that example. It's not a systemic problem about gender and power. It's about individual actions. That said, it doesn't mean I don't believe in the buddy system and I didn't learn self-defense, but I know it's not my individual problem. There's a structural problem in which there's a rape culture in which it's permissible on certain levels that needs to change. Okay, this is a super racist video, so trigger warning on that. This is Tommy Lauren talking about Colin Kaepernick, and boy, don't we miss just the kneel now, right?
Welcome back. Oh, Colin Kaepernick, I've got some final thoughts for you, bud. See, our buddy Colin decided not to stand for the national anthem because, well, he will not stand to show pride in a flag or a country that oppresses black people. For him, it's bigger than football. He would be selfish to look the other way. After all, according to Kaepernick, there are bodies in the street and people getting paid leave and getting away with murder. So let me go ahead and eviscerate this mouth diarrhea for you sentence by sentence. Here we go. Colin, I support the First Amendment. I support your right to freedom of speech and expression. Go for it, bud. It's this country, the country that you have so much disdain for, that allows you the right to speak your mind. It protects your right to be a whiny, indulgent, attention-seeking crybaby. It also protects my right to shred you for it. See, the national anthem and our flag, they are not symbols of black America, white America, brown America, or purple America for that matter. There are patriots of every race that have fought and died for this country, and we honor the flag and sing the anthem as a reminder. And Colin, if this country disgusts you so much, leave. I guarantee there are thousands and thousands of people around the world that would gladly take your spot. Because those that don't live under this flag are begging on the door to get in, not get out. Remember that. Is our country perfect? No. But what have you done to make it better? What's your contribution? Sitting there like a fool? What selfish is you, buddy? And what's your message to black kids, to people of color? That their biggest contribution to justice and self-fulfillment is to parade around with a chip on their shoulder like a victim? And Colin, how dare you sit there and blame white people for the problems of minority communities? After all, aren't you half white? Didn't two white parents adopt you after yours weren't willing to raise you? For a racist and horrible country filled with racist and horrible white people, that's really something, isn't it? Maybe you should also decline the paycheck from the white owner of your team, or the white fans that buy your merchandise and fill the stands to watch you play. There's a statement I don't see you making anytime soon. And Colin, who's getting away with murder? I'd like to see some evidence to back that up, because that's a pretty strong claim. And what about the oppression of black people? It's funny. Through that 6-year career of yours, you choose to start sitting now? What changed to make you so resentful of your country? Please tell me how you're oppressed. Is it because the black unemployment rate is double what it is for whites, or the homicide rate, or the dropout rate, or the percentage in minority communities on food stamps? Well, we've had a black president for almost 8 years now. Maybe he failed you. We also have a black woman in charge of the Justice Department. Maybe she failed you too. Or maybe it's the liberals, your saviors, which have run your communities into the ground. Where does the buck stop? When will those in black communities take a step back and take some responsibility for the problems in black communities? Because it seems to me blaming white people for all of your problems might make you the racist. But Colin, you don't care about any of that. You want to make a political statement. But here's the deal, Colin. I've got loved ones overseas right now fighting for your right to sit on a bench and bitch and moan about your perceived oppression while making $19 million a year to throw a ball. Just show a little respect. And if you want to sit down, now's the time on the bench because you suck. But perhaps you should stand up for the anthem. God bless from Dallas. Good night and take care.
Okay, sorry about that. That was horrific. Yeah, this notion of Black people being ungrateful, that trope already, you can hear in it the racism that he didn't have a right to be there. He should be grateful that he got to be there, or that white people took care of him, or the white owner, all of those things. But you hear the denial that there is no oppression, there are no murders. But part of the Pendejo game is, tell me how you've been oppressed. Give me some evidence. There's no amount of evidence you could give her that she would hear, right? There's no amount of, so you start to do it and then she just runs it down. We had a Black president for 8 years, as if that would undo 400 years of systemic racism. And yeah, like it's even possible to do that. Anyways, I think you can see she encapsulates all of the tropes, and we'll talk more about her as we go. But the very solid one is that there is no racism, and if there is, it's because Black people's attitude and not because of anything else. And you hear this a lot. Inequality is attitude, not structure. So women, people of color, gays and lesbians, whatever, you just have a victim mentality. And the way you know this is that people in power like to hold up the stories of people who succeed. My sister's like, look, I saw Pursuit of Happiness, and it proves that if you want it and you work hard enough at it, you can get it. And there's like, people just make excuses of why they can't get things. And if you fail, it's because of your own fault, right? And if you speak out, that's complaining. So this, we have this notion of the welfare queen, it's her own fault. It's too hard is never a valid excuse. Work hard, keep a positive attitude, you can accomplish anything. So my mom is chronically ill, also with autoimmune issue, and she likes to go to these new agey churches like Unity Church, and they believe in positive thinking, which is amazing. But there's now something called toxic positivity, where when my mom did get sick, her minister asked her why she was choosing to be sick. Why didn't she choose to be well? Because you can think yourself into a positive situation. So clearly my mom is choosing to ruin her own life by being sick over and over again. And if she prays hard enough, she could, you know, and had the right attitude, she could choose to do something else. Positive and self-confidence bring success, right? The Me Too movement was all about victimhood and intimidation and helplessness. It wasn't about speaking out or being strong or breaking the silence or standing together or fighting back. It's just about women just talking about all their victimization, right? White privilege is simply the lack of victim mentality. Change your attitude and you can have privilege too. As if, so I grew up poor, and when I went to buy my first house, I didn't have parents who helped me with the down payment, right? A lot of parents did help their kids with the down payment. That's structural change. That's not about, or that's structural difference. What you start with, I had significant student loan debt when I finished college. Some people had no loan debt, and they'll say, well, I worked through college. Yeah, but you didn't pay for all of college by working, I'm guessing, right? I'm guessing that somebody else helped you as well if you didn't, like, or you lived at home or something else, right? So this idea that we all work hard and we all sacrifice, we all have stuff going on, but it doesn't mean it's purely an attitude thing. No matter how hard I try, probably not going to climb Mount Everest, right? And this one's going around. This is by Ted Nugent. If you're posting Ted Nugent on your Facebook, you're definitely playing the Pendejo game, okay? Just so you know. So we have a virus, but 99% of those who contract it will survive. That's A, not true statistically. B, I caught it, and there's really awful things that happen even if you don't die. We have some racist, but 99.9% of people are colorblind and aren't racist. Again, not true. We have some bad cops, but 99.9% of law enforcement aren't like that. Again, not a true stat. If you choose to see evil, then evil is all you see. So the idea is people being killed, people dying or getting deathly ill from coronavirus but living, all of these things, they're just choosing to see evil. And if you choose not to see it, evil doesn't exist. That's like when Trump just said, if we stop testing for the coronavirus, our case numbers would go down. Well, yep. if we stop prosecuting murders for murder, our murder rate will go down as well, because nobody's been identified as murder. But this is the idea that if you don't see it, it doesn't exist, and therefore people seeing it, it's an attitude problem and it's not real. Okay, that's the heaviest one. We'll pause there and do the rest in another one.